This week we'll be learning Parsha Pinchas, our weekly Devar Torah brought to you by Be There Israel and Or Chadash. So last week, hopefully you watched last week, we discussed how Pinchas was able to stop the plague in Israel that had broken out because of the out-of-hand scene that was happening in the camp. And he did that by taking a romach, a spear, and killing Zimri and Cosby. But that actually stopped the plague and, in a sense, saved all of Israel. So this week's Parsha begins by God rewarding Pinchas with a Brit Shalom, a covenant of peace. So the question that is asked by many commentators is, how does one merit a covenant of peace based on doing an act of violence? It's a very good question, and hopefully we will address it. The Slonim Rabbi in Netivat Shalom gives the following explanation. He's not the only one, which is that really Pinchas was acting from great love of the people. His act was an act of violence, but his motivation was a plague had broken out and thousands of people were dying. And he wanted to save the people. It was out of love of the people that he acted in this manner. And we see this in the root of the letters for romach. If you take the same letters and you switch them around, they spell out rachem, have compassion. From that same root, we have the word for womb, rechem, and that's an obvious connection that we always talk about. There's no compassion in the world more than a mother for her children. And where is the child nurtured? Is in the womb, in the rechem. So here we see in the letters themselves a proof text for this idea that Pinchas merited a covenant of peace because his motivation was really peaceful. But then we have the paradox is, how do you get still? Even having said that, still the peace was accomplished through violence. So we could see many examples of this in our private lives and in history. That many times wars have to be fought in order to bring peace. Now that sounds paradoxical, but if you have an enemy that will not listen to reason and will only stop when being stopped, then one has no choice but to confront the enemy with the hope that that will bring a time of peace together. We see this throughout history, and the most recent was World War II, where two of America's greatest enemies and the world's enemies, Germany and Japan, they're America's best friends now. But that wouldn't have happened without having to confront them. Because sometimes there are forces that one has no choice but to confront and then hopes that peace can be reestablished afterwards. And we have that in our own lives also, that sometimes we're in a disagreement with someone and we try to placate, we try to compromise, but sometimes that only fuels more abuse or more disagreement. And sometimes the only way to put an end to it is to draw a line in the sand and to take a stand. And then sometimes, hopefully, things can be brought back to order. So we see that this idea of receiving a covenant of peace for a violent act is not as outrageous as it sounds in the beginning. But let's look at one more aspect here, is that in the word shalom, the vav is actually broken in the middle. There is no other letter in the entire Torah that is a broken letter. Usually if you have a letter that there's a break in it, it disqualifies the entire Torah until it's fixed. Here, on purpose, there's what's called a vav ketiyah. In the word shalom, the vav is broken. So this is telling us, we'll go one more step, is that even after everything that we said, that sometimes you have to meet violence with violence in order to create peace. But the Torah is saying that even so, that's not the ideal situation. The ideal situation would be have a true peace. Now the word peace comes from the word shalem, complete. So the fact that one of the letters is broken in the word shalom is telling us that even though Pinchas received a covenant of peace, it's not the ultimate peace that we're looking for. And there's a further hint here that according to tradition, this cycle of history will last for 6,000 years. How do we learn this? In the first verse in the Torah, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. There are 6 alephs. Now the letter aleph also means elef, which means 1,000. So the sages had a oral tradition that this cycle of history would last for 6,000 years. Now what's interesting is that the vav equals 6. This letter that's broken in the word shalom equals 6. And that hints to that in a sense, all of history, whatever we call peace, it's not the real thing yet. It's not the real thing yet. Every peace has been followed by wars. Right now in the world, if we could count how many wars are going on, it would be very disheartening. But this is how it's been throughout all of history. There are pockets of peace. Of course, we have Shabbat, which is a taste of real peace. But then we go back to the 6 days of the week. So this broken vav hints that we're waiting for a type of shalom that is not with a broken vav. That is with a complete vav, and we should all merit to see the kind of peace that we all dream about, and all of the prophets promised us that one day would occur. Thanks for watching this Devar Torah. If you like what you heard, which I hope you did, please come to our YouTube station, our website, our Facebook, our blog, our Twitter, and take advantage of a plethora of Torah, of audio classes, videos, poetry, stories, music, word and gematria search. You'll find a lot there, and please share this with your friends. www.thetrugmans.com